In this video, I'm going to digitize the river. I'm putting it into a empty feature class which we created previously in a geodatabase. I've added the layers. The project is to digitize the shape of the river within the area of concern, which is this yellow box. And we want the river to contain the samples. The samples were measured with a boat in the water, and so if the aerial photo makes it look like one of these samples is on the shore, the aerial photo is probably incorrect. As you get in and look at these, you'll see there are places they overlap and they don't agree. So the rule is that we want the point to be inside the river, and if that means digitizing a little bit of the land and calling it river, then that's what we'll do. So I'm going to make it easier to see through my outline, and I'm going to zoom in somewhat. I have found over the years, for me, it's easiest to do a crude outline first and then zoom in and refine it, partly because it used to be very difficult to pan and digitize at the same time. I'm going to turn on the editor toolbar by clicking that, so I have an editor. When I say start editing, I have to tell it what feature class we're going to edit. I created an empty polygon feature class called river, and I brought it in. That's the one I'm going to edit. And my table of contents is set for this to be on. If you happen to have yours in and you have it unchecked, you will digitize, but you won't see anything because you don't have the layer turned on. So you want to make sure you do that. So I double clicked on the picture to bring up the template. Right now in this arc map I have only the one template. We have several different tools we can choose from down here, and you could do the project with the freehand tool, or you can do the project with the polygon tool. I have not experimented with the freehand tool. That's a fairly new tool, so I'm not sure if that works for other processes we're going to use. So today I'm going to use the polygon tool to do the digitizing. So as I said, I'm going to start fairly roughly, and then I'm going to zoom in. I like to save my edits frequently so I know what's going on. Well, that was an amusing thing that just happened, and I think I'll leave it in the movie. I digitized all around the river, and I forgot to double click the last point, and it's all disappeared when I hit save. So our take-home message from that is, when you are done, hit double click it to hit save. Alright, so I'm going to do this again. As you digitize along the river, when you zoom in on the aerial photos, which we will in a minute, you'll see that the imagery, now I'm going to double click. Okay, that looks good, and then I'm going to hit save. So in order to fine-tune this, I will want to zoom into different areas. I'm going to need to make the polygon transparent so I can see through it. I've made it a bright color so it shows against the aerial photos. And last, I'm going to click on the edit tool up here, and then I double click on my blue line, and now I can see the vertex pairs. And this is what I meant by, for me it's a little easier. If I right click, I can add a vertex. So now I work my way around the river and I just drag these where I want them, and I zoom in and I zoom out. This is my preferred method. It does not have to be the way you do it. And when I do this, I hit save fairly frequently. So what I was referring to a second ago, if we zoom in and look, these are boats parked along the marina. So there's a philosophical point here also. When the contamination was in the river, and you'll hear more about this in class, you would want to know if this concrete dock was there and so the river came around it, or has this concrete dock been put in afterwards and perhaps there's contamination underneath it. If you were actually doing this for the EPA, you'd be obligated to figure that out. So you can choose to treat this dock as if it's shoreline and to digitize it out of the river, or you can bring the river line down like I've got in my crude sketch. Neither one of those will seriously impact your final results for the class. It's just typical of the kind of things you have to think about in a project like this. And I do, as I said, I save my edits frequently just because this feature used to crash. I double click the blue line to get back to the ability to edit the pairs. In other words, to insert and move vertex pairs. So now what you need to do is work your way around the river, and the ultimate goal is, like here, I don't have to be right on the edge because the photos are not that accurate, but I don't want to include a lot of land because it makes the costs for the excavation go up. And of course, the more zoomed out I am, the larger the amount of incorporated sediments along the river are going to be. The tricky points, you're probably wise to include this as part of the river. This is one of the original sites of the contamination. And whether or not you decide to include this major concrete dock is, again, kind of a judgment call. And this is one place where the aerial photos have some disagreement, as I recall. So in my version today, I'm going to probably just follow the trees and not be out here on this concrete. Once I have this river pretty much the way I want, I'm going to do a stop editing. And I'll leave it the way it is, and we'll zoom out and see what we have. So again, you want to be tighter than I am. You will want to continue and do a better job than I've done, particularly like here, so that you have a pretty reasonable estimate of the area of the river. And I think that wraps this up.